الحملة التي بدأتها أمريكا في ثمانينيات القرن الماضي لجمع المجاهدين لمحاربة روسيا الكافرة في أفغانستان هي بداية لتأسيس القاعدة. وقد ساهمت في الجهد الأكبر المملكة العربية السعودية عن طريق الدعم المالي وإصدار الفتاوى الدينية وجمع المقاتلين وتدريبهم وتسفيرهم إلى أفغانستان في مواكب كالأعراس شهدتها مطارات دول الخليج والدول العربية الأخرى، وبشكل منتظم وبالتنسيق مع المخابرات الأمريكية التي وفرت الدعم العسكري واللوجستي لهم. وكانت وفود طالبان تصل إلى نيويورك حتى عام 2001. إذن هو الأخطبوط ذاته الذي يحكم العالم، والخطة ذاتها السيطرة على الحكام، ومن خلالهم يتم تنفيذ مخططهم للسيطرة على شعوب المنطقة والعالم. الذي يحتاج إلى تفسير حقا هو: لماذا خططوا منذ 100 عام لتشويه صورة الإنسان العربي؟ ما الفائدة من خلق هذه الصورة المشوهة بعد أن أنجزوا مهمتهم بنجاح في السيطرة على الاقتصاد والسياسة والأرض في الوطن العربي؟ ولماذا الإنسان العربي بالتحديد وليس المسلم التركي أو الإيراني أو الماليزي أو غيرهم؟ ما هو السر في هذا المخطط الشيطاني الغريب؟ الإسلام فوبيا.
According to the FBI, hate crimes in America targeting Muslims or people who just appear to be Middle Eastern surged in the aftermath of 9/11.
There is this cloud, with the hate crimes, with the profiling, with being rounded up. Again, I think this illustrates the power of film, that in spite of the reality, in spite of the material that we know to be true, we still embrace the mythology. The mythology is still a part of our psyches. Stereotypes take a long time to wither away. And for many of us, we're comfortable with our prejudices. We don't want to change. We've grown accustomed to this face.
بدأت حملتان بعد أحداث 11 من سبتمبر. الحملة الأولى كانت إعلامية كبيرة على الإسلام، وباتت التصريحات المباشرة ضد الإسلام كدين واضحة، وتعالت دعوات منع الحجاب وإيقاف بناء المساجد في أوروبا والتضييق على المسلمين والتعدي على مقام الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من خلال نشر الرسوم المسيئة له ونشر الكتب والمقالات التي تصرح بشكل غير مسبوق بمعاداة الإسلام والسماح بحرق كتاب الله جهرة تحت ذريعة حرية التعبير. وبدأت تصريحات السياسيين الأوروبيين والأمريكيين تطال الإسلام والرموز الإسلامية، حتى أصبح من البديهي في كل حملة انتخابية في أوروبا رفع شعارات تشتم الإسلام وتنعته بالإرهاب والتخلف، في عملية يقودها جهاز واحد ومجموعة واحدة تنسق فيما بينها وتختار العبارات ذاتها لوصف الإسلام والمسلمين. والحملة الثانية كانت عسكرية، شعارها نشر الديمقراطية في الوطن العربي وتغيير الأنظمة الدكتاتورية كالنظام العراقي والسعودي. ولكن الأحداث الأخيرة أثبتت بطلان ما يدعون لوقوفهم العلني والصارخ مع الديكتاتوريات ضد انتفاضات الشعوب العربية، بحيث بات واضحاً أنهم رفعوا شعارات الديمقراطية لتمرير مخطط خطير يجتاح المنطقة. كل هذه التداعيات كانت نتيجة لأحداث 11 من سبتمبر. لنتابع هذا الفيلم الذي يمثل جهد نخبة من العلماء والأكاديميين الأمريكيين الذين رفضوا الرواية الرسمية وبحثوا عن أسرار وحقيقة أحداث 11 من سبتمبر وتوصلوا إلى نتائج خطيرة.
It looks like one of those scenes of an old building being purposely dynamited and blown up.
Anybody who's ever watched a building being demolished on purpose knows that if you're going to do this, you have to get at the under infrastructure of a building and bring it down.
The way the structure is collapsing, this was the result of something that was planned. It's not accidental that the first tower just happened to collapse and then the second tower just happened to collapse in exactly the same way. How they accomplished this, we don't know.
The building collapsed to dust. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big.
What happened to the concrete? The concrete was pulverized from river to river. There was dust powder 2-3 inches thick. The concrete was just pulverized.
Reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
If they had detonated, they were planned to take down a building.
I heard a second explosion.
There was a heavy-duty explosion.
There was some secondary explosions and then subsequent collapses.
An explosion blew and it knocked everybody over.
To me, it sounded like an explosion.
It sounded like gunfire. Bang, 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 bang. And then all of a sudden, 3 big explosions.
We heard a big explosion coming down. And then the entire top of the building just blew up.
We saw some kind of explosion.
By the force of the explosions.
Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor.
Then we get to the lobby. This is a big explosion.
The lobby looked as though a bomb had exploded there.
A huge explosion now raining debris.
It's been a huge explosion.
Huge explosion that we all heard and felt.
We just witnessed some kind of follow-up explosion.
We heard a very loud blast explosion.
A secondary explosion at Tower 1 camp.
That is another bomb going off. He thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building.
The head of Pakistani intelligence at the ISI, Mahmoud Ahmed, requested Omar Sheikh to wire $100,000 to Mohammed Atta, who was the lead hijacker.
Hijacker Mohammed Atta received wire transfers via Pakistan. The man sending the money to Atta is believed to be Ahmed Umar Saeed Sheikh.
Omar Sheikh admitted he was supported by the Pakistan government's intelligence service, the ISI.
How could anyone fly a 60-ton, 125-foot wide, 44-foot tall plane through this obstacle course?
The aircraft, before striking the Pentagon, reportedly executed a 270-degree downward spiral, and yet Hani Hanjour was known as a terrible pilot who could not safely fly even a small plane.
No seats, no luggage, no bodies. Nothing but bricks and limestone.
The official explanation is that the intense heat from the jet fuel vaporized the entire plane. Flight 77 had 2 Rolls-Royce engines made of steel and titanium alloy and weighs 6 tons each. It is scientifically impossible, but 12 tons of steel and titanium was vaporized by jet fuel.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. And as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand.
Shortly after the strike, government agents picked up debris and carried it off. The entire lawn was covered with dirt and gravel. so that any remaining forensic evidence was literally covered up. The videos from security cameras, which would show what really hit the Pentagon, were immediately confiscated by agents of the FBI, and the Department of Justice has to this day refused to release them. If these videos would prove that the Pentagon was really hit by a 757, most of us would assume the government would release them.
It looks like there's nothing there except for a hole in the ground.
Basically, that's right. The only thing you could see from where we were was a big gouge in the earth and some broken trees. We could see some people working, walking around in the area, but from where we could see, there wasn't much left.
Any large pieces of debris at all?
No, there was nothing that you could distinguish that a plane had crashed there.
Pancake theory, according to which the fires, while not melting the steel, heated it up sufficiently to cause the floors weakened by the airplane strikes to break loose from the steel columns, and this started a chain reaction.
So you would expect then from that theory, which is the official theory, to see a whole stack of floors piled up on top of each other and then a spindle of core columns standing too.
The core of each of the twin towers consisted of 47 massive steel columns. If the floors had broken loose from them, these columns would have still been sticking up into the air 1,000 feet.
The plane did not cut all those core columns.
We designed the buildings to take the impact of the Boeing 707 hitting the building at any location.
The building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners.
That the plane flew straight into the building. So you're saying that the building was actually designed to cope with a hole like that and then still survive?
Yeah, it works.
If you had dropped, say, a billiard ball from the top of the World Trade Center, 110 floors up there, it would have taken 8 to 10 seconds to hit the ground, encountering no resistance whatsoever.
Twin towers came down in near free fall speed. 200,000 tons of steel shatters and explodes outwards over 500 feet.
This means that floors shatter at an average rate of about 10 floors per second.
There is no scenario for a pancake effect of buildings falling that allows them to fall at the rate of free fall.
And what can do that? What can move mass out of the way? Explosives. "47 huge steel columns going up the core, and they're interconnected. How do you get them to fail simultaneously so the core disappeared?" It looks like those core columns were cut.
The way we do this is by cutting the beam at an angle.
I started looking at the molten metal. All three buildings, both towers in the rubble, in the basement areas, and Building 7, there's these pools of molten metal. So I'm looking through the official reports. What do they say about the molten metal? They say nothing. Now, wait a minute. This is important evidence. So where did that come from?
البروفيسور في الفيزياء ستيفن جونز حلل من خلال المجهر الإلكتروني منصهر الحديد الذي وجد في الركام، وكذلك حلل ذرات الحديد المجهرية الموجودة في الغبار، فوجد آثاراً دقيقة ليس فقط لمركبات الثيرمايت المتفجرة، بل وجد مركبات عالية الكبريت تدعى الثيرميت، وهي نوع مسجل يستخدم في معامل الهدم عن طريق التفجيرات. تابعوا نتائج التحقيق الذي قام به مجموعة من الأكاديميين والباحثين الأمريكيين لمعرفة حقيقة أحداث 11 من سبتمبر.
We can understand, therefore, why the Commission, under Zelikow leadership, would have ignored all the evidence that would point to the truth. That 9/11 was a false flag operation intended to authorize the doctrines and funds needed for a new level of imperial mobilization.